Hi, and welcome to my review slash guide to LED flashlights. Over the past 6 years, they've come onto the market and been basically fed to the consumer originally as tactical flashlights at high dollar, i.e., from Surefire and some of the other brands. Down to now the consumer grade, i.e. Dorsey, Craftsman, well built, whatnot. I am not a flashlight collector as the rest, not the rest, but as most of the flashlight consumer world is. However, I am a lighting designer as well as a critic when it comes to any products that I sell, promote, or bring to life. So to give you a background of how long I have been in the LED industry, this is actually a project that we were working on from Linear Technologies, utilizing one of their chips. And if you actually look at the date, sorry, there's edits because it's confidential. We were actually working on the LED technology back in early 2004. So, and you'll see in just a few seconds that it comes back to me, obviously, right there. So, obviously, this is a picture of the actual printed schematic, just because I didn't want to ruin the original, nor go find the original on the archive drive. So, the proof one, sorry, I'm going to go through this because I want to make sure that I establish my credibility. I was actually selling the the Philips 5 watt at the same time that Surefire was introducing their L5 Lumen Max, and actually I think I hit the market first. I'm not 100% on that. I still haven't looked, but we were outputting 120 lumens with ours as versus Surefire, and I'll show you in a second, was only putting out 110 lumens. As you can see, there's a 75 for the 70 lumen and $100 for the 120 lumen. What we did, we took a Surefire Z2 Combat and converted it by basically what is now called a P60 pill. It's a P60 style lamp holder, but instead of being halogen, it was LED. The reason for the price difference was actually about $18 in extra material cost, because I was using a completely different heat sink to actually dissipate the heat and actually pull it away from the LED faster and dump it into the housing of the flashlight. And that's why we actually charged more for it. But as you could tell, we were reasonable. Also to that, that was coming out. I should have showed you that in just a second, but it doesn't matter. But we were also doing LED vehicle lighting, completely stealth, very economical. I decided to actually not go into the flashlight and emergency vehicle lighting market as hard as the other companies for several different reasons. Mainly, it's just not a market I wanted to compete in when I just want to go into that. So anyway, the benefit to this was this design is actually surprisingly still better than what is currently available. As anyone knows that has been buying LED light bars or has seen them over the past 6 years, has seen a vast improvement from barely being able to see them from off angle to when it was bad weather you couldn't see them, to now you can actually see them. Some actually go so far as to blind you. So there's that. But this is actually one of my first sales to me from as a non-OEM for the actual LEDs, and you can tell the part number in there. We're distributed by Future Electronics. Obviously cut out my address, but that is that, and that it was actually November 2004, and ship date was 4/11 of 2004. So that actually goes back to what is that? My math is really wretched. But anyway, we'll go on. Here's actually from CTP Coil some LED sample, some optics that I'm going to show you here in a second. When they sent me some samples, ship date was 11/23 of 2004, as you can tell there. And you can see it up there again. And again, these are not altered. If I ever get audited, I can document it. So then we have the obviously pamphlet. I keep technology stuff from going way back, so that way I know if a company's changed their product on me and trying to pull a fast one. And I'll go into each one of these and why they differ, because there's a difference. There's a few different types of reflectors out there. There's the standard reflector, this style, and my terms are bad. I learned all this from hands-on experience. Then you have tier, which is total internal reflection, which is this style. Looks kind of funny, but they're surprisingly efficient. And this is another tier, total internal reflection. This one is actually made to be as powerful as like a Maglite reflector if you're using LED technology, but you could use a 5-watt in this and thus reduce your head size, or if you're doing an array to wall wash or something, or a set of spots, you can create a low profile large array spot emitter or whatever you choose to do with it. Let me just go in while I'm doing this. And here's another one. When we were first getting into all of this back in 2000, now my years are always bad, sorry, 2003 or 2004, whenever it was, we were actually having the reflectors made by somebody else and machining them down so they would actually fit on our side of our pill adapter that would fit inside the Z2, or if the customer had a C2. So we weren't using cheap stuff to begin with. Let me just do something real quick. So basically sorry, I had to use a calculator. So for 9 years I've been in LED. My math was really bad. I'm an American boy. But that gives you, and also I've been dealing with Surefire as much as I don't order from them much or anything. I actually bought some batteries from them back in 2005. So, and they can actually verify from their order number and the customer number and all that to verify. So I've been playing in the market, and one of the surprising things is one of my Z2 Combat conversions was in a state trooper's hand, and a Surefire representative had seen it right when the L5 LumenMax came out. Oh yeah, here's another style of reflector. It's Forenzel technology. But anyway, Surefire, and Surefire actually uses this technology. So do some other manufacturers. Surefire rep actually tried to get the flashlight from the trooper. But here's another style of reflector, and this is actually another very, very efficient, and I'll go into that a little bit further and show you. But basically what this does is it takes the light coming out basically at 180 degrees from the LED and then concentrates it back into a 90, so by the time it's coming out, instead of being going out all sideways in every which way direction, it's actually coming out in a straight beam pattern. I'll show you that here in a second. But we want to get on to build quality as well. But I wanted to give you a baseline of why what I say is factual and why you should listen to what I have to say. Another thing, and I'll go into some of it in a little bit, just to give you another heads up. We like to utilize battery packs around here. Don't want to scare the neighbors, but we'll let that run for a second and then I'll show it to you so that way you can see the flash pattern. But as you can see, we were actually, the size of the chips that we were actually using for some of ours were actually pretty small, trying to get that to where it's actually focusing on the chips, not the light. But you can tell that they're extremely small. They're surface mount devices. Within the LED itself, you have two styles, Lambertian style. That's a dead one. You have two styles, Lambertian style, which emit your output at 120 to 180 degrees typically out here, and then your reflector takes care of where you're going to send it to. All your heat is generated on at least on this big size puck. On the new Cree XMLs, they're a lot smaller backplate, so I recommend using the star adapter that they have, or use some really good thermal epoxy going into. And then you have the side emitting, I don't know if I showed you that one yet, which is great for when you use this style reflector, because it actually adds as a secondary to gain inefficiency. So we've showed that. Here's what a typical LED driver looks like for a flashlight. This is actually not one of my designs, no offense, but I don't show my stuff. I actually thermally pot it in a MG Chemicals A32TC thermal epoxy, so that way if you try to break it open and see my design, because I don't patent them or anything, you're going to break it before you find out anything. It's also explosive proof, and it makes it waterproof. This was just a crap setup just to do a show install, and I actually snapped off top of the inductor. So there's not that many parts counts on it, and actually, surprisingly enough, when these actually first came out, when we were building the units, it costs more to make this board than the LED itself, and the LED originally started costing $18 to the retail end of the commercial market, and then lower it depending on how many you bought, and if you got to OEM, you were doing really well. But even at that, this was costing a few bucks more. I should say about $1.50 more than the LED itself. So there wasn't really that much cost into the flashlight itself. It was this, the LED, the heat sink, and if we had to change the optic as well, which wasn't that much in reality, another couple bucks. So in reality, out of that $75, there was a good profit margin in it. However, we give a lifetime warranty, so we had to, add into that. Now I'm going to show you. This is actually, I just wanted to turn off, so it's got an old switch in it. This is actually our first light bar that we actually made. Sorry, it does look a little bit disgusting. So I'm running it off a battery pack, and it's got a really switch on it. It was a cheap switch anyway. This is a R&D unit that we had built just to do proof of concept, and it has survived all these years. This was actually built at the time when that future invoice was coming through, so it's proven its test of time on a design standpoint. Again, completely designed in-house from top to bottom by, not to brag, but by me. I do admit it doesn't look pretty. However, my R&D project or proof of concept definitely are not pretty. They're just meant to prove that it can be done. So going on to reflectors real quick, this is actually one of our flashlights that we had developed. Let's zoom in so you can see how nice it looks. Focus. Anyway, there we go. You can see that it's when we install our heat sink, and if you look at the edge up here, you can actually see that it's actually rounded, and that's actually a thermal epoxy smoothed over to gain extra contact and rigidity. Again, this flashlight has been beaten on, slammed to the ground, and the LED is not come off. The driver in it is actually, I'll get to the driver here in a second, but so we'll show you a couple of different ways you can optically drive a flashlight. So as you can see, let's move these out of the way, because we'll come back to these here in a bit. The beam pattern you get from this flashlight when you just have it on, that no reflector of any kind. Again, this is going to be a long video, so I hope you have time, and at the end of it you will actually understand quite a bit more about flashlights and LEDs and what to be looking out for and what you want and don't want. So here we have it screwed in all the way, and we have a nice flood. Let's zoom out, get it right underneath the camera, and we have a nice even spot. This particular optic will actually turn the light in such a manner that you'll actually get a almost perfect image of the extra LED dye as you see as the crosshairs. This actually served dual purpose on a tactical weapon light. We actually put basically a magnifying glass in front of in a completely new housing in front of this, just to spread that a little bit more. But you can actually see that this 5 watt Lexan 5 watt is actually made up of 4 individual LED dyes, and that's why it's bigger around. And I'll show you that just here in a quick second, just to show you that. Here's a 5 watt, and we have a 30 watt. Well, we have a 3 watt red. A 3 watt red is equivalent. Oh, you can't see that. Sorry. Let's pour these back in. Here's a 3 watt blue, royal blue I should say, and this is a 5 watt. You can see the LED dye is way smaller on the 3 watt than the 5 watt. Why? Because there's 4 of these on that one dye chip. So we'll go back and we'll show you another optic that you can add to this and achieve similar results. This is the most efficient, besides TYR total internal reflection reflectors that you can get out there. We'll put the Maglite original reflector in. However, if you look at some of the Surefire flashlights, it is mounted. It has to have a shock absorber. As you can see, you get more of a even spot. You can actually tell that this LED dye was actually not perfectly centered, i.e. this is not one of the sold units. It was close but not close enough. But you can tell that style optic. And then I'll show you this nice flat one over here. And then we'll get onto the actual flashlight and builds and whatnot. I figured I'd make one video versus a whole bunch. So here's this one. And as you can see, on purpose, we let this one get scratched up, so that way it would actually show us how truly efficient this style reflector really is. As you can see, it's nice and bright. And what this center part does is there's a cone in there, so it actually not only takes the light that's coming off and hitting the side reflector and going out, but it's taking some of the light that's coming straight off and bouncing it off to the side, thus pointing it straight out again. This is again for layman's. As you can see, it's got the square pattern. It's not as pronounced, that crosshair, as the glass one I just showed you, and that's primarily because it is scratched up pretty well. When it was new, and the new ones we have, they do. However, they do scratch up the minute you touch them, so they have to be taken out and installed right away. Here's another TYR. As you can see, as soon as you put this on, all that light that was hitting the side of the camera right now, go back in there, is now going into the reflector. This is a 25 watt spread, so it's obviously not providing a hot spot like the other flashlights will. And then you have other options, i.e. a line spread. As you can see, there's a line. I don't know how well the camera is showing it. So there's plenty of different ways you can actually optically light up a flashlight and actually throw your beam. The TYR, the total internal reflectors, what I like, the Surefire E1B backup is a TYR reflector. What I like about that is it gives you throw, but it doesn't give you spill. The Surefire Fury uses the standard style reflector, and I don't know why I cannot think of that at the moment, but it gives you a wider spill and it still gives you the throw because it's a 500 lumen. So when you look at it, you can actually see that the spill on the E1B is a lot smaller than on the Fury, and that's not because it's 500 watts. That is actually because of the reflector design. One, the tear just is more pronounced. It's like the projector headlights on the new BMW, Mercedes, Lexuses versus the old style cars. It actually forces that light out, and it's like lighthouses. Takes a very little bit of light to make it go very far. And then here's some of the reflectors that we were using in those when we were doing plastic. Oops, as I bumped everything. This is one that got machined down and just never got used, but this was for a P60 drop-in on a Nitrilion, and the customer wanted plastic, and it was actually a low wattage. So, and we could actually go down to super small reflectors versus that size reflector. This is again a milled down one, but you can tell that there is a difference. So onto flashlight builds. We're going to show you a couple different ones from consumer grade garbage, honestly in my opinion, to what was, let me show you another thing real quick. Oh, and just to give you an idea, I still have spools of red and blue 3 watt, 1 watt, red and blue white, and 5 watt whites from different points in the manufacturing period, just to ensure long-term quality control. And I'm just that type of person that I want to make sure that nothing's changed. Also, this is the, let me just fold these over. If they can't handle that kind of abuse, they shouldn't be rated flashlight. This is a Surefire tactical catalog. I'll show you the L5 that I have in here. Surefire was, to be honest, in my opinion, a great brand when it came to halogen light flashlights. However, and then when they got into LED, they, with the L5, they were doing, they actually went up in 2007 to the 120 lumens, as you can see, by improved performance. But when it launched, it was only 110 lumens, and I was taking, where is it? The C2, because that's the LED flashlights. Let's go back. I'm not sure if they even have a C2 in here. But I was taking the C2 and the Z2 halogen and converting it over to basically an L5. So, and this is actually our sales sheet. So we were actually selling them in 2004. Yeah, I don't see it. I'm not really going to look. Surefire as a brand, we're gonna not beat on Surefire a little bit, but we are. Surefire as a brand is supposed to be sure to fire. It's supposed to work. You're paying for that. Me as a manufacturer, designer, R&D in LED, in the flashlight, emergency vehicle, commercial lighting world, if I see a problem, there's a problem. I forgot where I was going with that. I kind of got sidetracked by a text that came in. But Surefire was known as the top brand, and you're paying for it. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying is, I know what everything truly costs. Not only that, I worked for a Japanese 300-year-old company that made the CNC machines, and I actually knew how to use the CNC machine and actually program G-code, and I actually was able to make a few of my own flashlights copying theirs. I just didn't do anything with them, nor test them once I knew I could, make it, and actually made a few of my own designs without any of their numbers from their, from their design. I actually made my own before I tested it against theirs. I should have reversed how I said that. But again, this was not an industry I wanted to go heavily in. It's just not worth it. But Surefire was making top-end stuff. Now apparently the P2X and some of the X series, I guess, is a consumer grade, is what rumors on the internet are. That's unacceptable to me. So the last good flashlight that came out of Surefire, in my opinion, is the E1 Backup. I've actually taken this thing, slammed it against the ground several times, and it survived. And I've actually done this most 99% of those slammings to show customers while they were actually at a store and I was carrying it, because it's E1 backup. You can carry it in your pocket. So I primarily carry it, and I've slimmed it down that it would make a surefire sale instantly, even if a Nitron. One of the low-end flashlights. This one, however, the Fury, as my other video states, has got some issues. Within that, I'm going to do a torture test to these flashlights, and I know the E1B will survive. However, I don't think this one will, and I know that these other three will fail. But we'll get into build quality now. So this is actually kind of surprising. How do I want to do this? Surefire's old build quality used to be really top-notch on everything. Now, as you can see, it's no offense to them, it's pretty chintzy built. This is again the last of the somewhat good generation. This used to be a two-piece on the bigger series flashlights, a two-piece metal, not a insert that used to unscrew, so you could actually do maintenance on the switch and fix it if for some reason it came down too hard and broke the switch. Now they've gone to, on the P2X, a totally replaceable non-serviceable tail cap, which I'm not a fan of. It just shows cheaper quality. Also, in my opinion, I think they went to a lower grade aluminum. The other plus side on the Fury, the other plus side of the E1 backup is, if you look, it's got I'm assuming nickel-plated positive contact. Unlike on the Fury, that's just got the copper-clad PC board. You will notice that I do have a silver-looking grease. That's actually Arctic Silver 5 to help conduct the heat from here to the body, so that way I can get extended runtime without actually overheating the LED. Again, this will be part of the drop test. So this is actually a pretty well built flashlight, and I'll actually show you on here. They did come out with a new version. It's not up on their website yet, but it's in their video. They did straighten this out. So instead of this being beveled in, it's a straight cut, and it's cheaper to actually manufacture it that way. But it also gives more material between here and the outside, thus improving the strength. So this would not have happened with the new series. Other thing I would say is this has already gone through a revision. So they're already on the third one. They need to make an E1B V3 is, and call them, what they are. Within that, as you can see, it's been marked up. So the first one was 80 lumen, which is what this is supposed to be. Then there was the 110 lumen, and then the new one that's coming out that's not beveled. This versus a 110 lumen, I can't tell the difference, and trust me, in LEDs I can tell the difference. So, and then we'll show you the Surefire Fury real quick. We'll do the high end first, then the low end. Again, not replaceable, serviceable tail cap, just junk if it fails. I'm assuming there's a million new one. It's got the bare circuit board where your batteries are supposed to connect to. As you remember, on this board, you could actually mount it in there and have your batteries connect straight to that one's bare copper. However, most people would tin it or solder a spring onto it to, just some common sense. So we'll do a torture test on this one as well. Then we have a Dorsey that has a back tail switch. This one I actually converted over to red just for other testing purposes. I actually like this design because it protects it. The downside to this flashlight, two things. One, when I do the torture test, I know I'm going to break the battery bank. It's very cheap built, and I don't like running off AA. The other thing about it is, if you actually look, pardon me, if you actually look at this, it's all plastic, so there's no place for the heat to go. So this will not last the full lifetime of what the LED should actually last. It's going to last a lot less than that. For a on sale $12 flashlight, you get what you pay for. It's going to work until you drop it. I know that because I've actually experienced dropping one at 4.5 feet and the battery container broke. Also, you're running 3 AAA batteries, unless they're Sanyo rechargeable nickel metal hydride. You're spending a lot of money on, you're going to spend more on a cheap flashlight than you will on a high end. So the camera stopped working, so we had to turn it off. So we've taken apart this one Dorsey so you can actually see what's inside of this one. This is a 3-watt as it came from the store. You can tell it's all plastic and there's no heatsink behind it. So this will not last the full lifetime. It's a guaranteed failure on it, unfortunately. But again, it's $12 flashlight, so just to get somebody into an LED flashlight, they're a good purchase, but don't count on it as a tactical unit, or obviously, or a survival unit, or anything where it can actually get abused. I'll show you actually inside of here. I actually did do an upgrade, and I'll show you another one. They have a digital circuit, a digital on-off circuit. This is a linear driven, so it actually is not a buck boost, which basically what the Surefires are and what my big flashlight was, where it can take a multitude of voltages and it basically takes that input voltage, turns it into a different voltage, and it basically up converts it and then brings it back down to what you need it to be. It's just simple electronics. This one on the right, I did actually make waterproof, so that way it won't short out the components when they get wet, because that's part of the torture test, so we'll actually see how they do there too. So I'm not going to put that back together right now, because we're going to go on to the next part. One reason why I don't like alkaline batteries, that's the wrong one. Where is the dead one? Here it is. Sorry, you're going to see my hand. Oops, as a board fell. One reason why I don't like alkaline batteries is they like to rupture. As you can tell in here, come on, focus. There you go. They like to explode alkaline all over the place. I recommend lithium. This was done on purpose. And this was actually done just for storage, and this is what came out. So alkaline is your worst enemy when it comes to batteries, especially in flashlights. Spend a little bit of money, get the lithium battery, and you'll be a lot happier off. Now let's go on to a well-built. This one has got a this one actually failed the drop test, and it was an accidental drop. As you can tell, it's got a mark there. That's nice and reflective, and it's got a mark there. This is before the string was added, so it actually broke the switch and then just rigged up the switch. It upset me. So here's a spot on this. This is 110 lumen. This is supposedly an 80. Come back here. 80 lumen. You can tell, and they're both at the same height, that definitely the tier gives you more throw. This one, they really did not design the optics very well. However, they did make some other good design points, and some other bad ones. One thing people don't realize, with older style flashlights, you used to be able to change your batteries in the rain. Nowadays, if it's not completely sealed, the way I waterproofed that one board I showed you, you're up a creek when it decides to short out on you, because you have to remember that you're actually driving these at quite a bit of power in a very small area on the circuit board. So you can actually see that this one's got another linear driven circuit board and if you actually look at the back of this, there's no real contact between the LED and the aluminum plate, which screws onto another aluminum plate. So it just has the outside ring. So it's designed basically not to fail, but to fail. The one plus that I liked about this over the Surefire, which I could not believe for another $12 flashlight, was voila, they put a spring on there where Surefire did not on the Fury. This is not only to make it a tactical flashlight, but also give it more resilience when it does make impact onto the ground, because that Surefire one will eventually, if you don't have that there, will break that board if a battery slams it too hard, if it goes straight down, and then you're really up a creek. And that's the other thing with LED driven flashlights, is when it goes down, you're up a creek. And now catch this is how cool this is. You can power this flashlight with one Surefire CR123. But as most of these flashlights, just cheaply built, flashlights that actually could be built a lot better for very little and extra cost, and then within that, they're charging us quite a bit of money. So the idea behind this video is to see the different designs that you can buy. Buy one that's got a hidden switch, preferably one with a very good warranty. I would say, get one with, a button here. If you can't, as much as I'm upset with Surefire right now, I do still recommend them to a point. I recommend their E1B backup. However, to be honest, I was going to be buying the 2211 weapon light. It goes on your wrist. However, I was actually going to buy it the same day my Fury decided to fail. So that was $459 that I saved myself, because I can't have unreliable products. For what I carry, I'm not a flashlight collector that has 1,000,001 flashlights. I have several flashlights, but I only rely on certain ones for certain applications and certain ones for all applications. So let's go back into just covering this tail cap real quick. I just want to show the quality of the spring that's even in here, and you'll see that the quality is even not the greatest. So if this gets hit too hard, it's gonna, and if you feel the weight of it versus the old ones, it's really not gonna hold up over time. And the spring is actually, it just feels cheap to me. But Surefire is supposed to be a tactical grade company, not a tactical and consumer. And this is, again, sorry if it bashes Surefire a little bit, but as much as I make flashlights and we're using Cree XMLs and we're doing several thousand lumens now, my main recommendation to people as if they're consumer or law enforcement is Surefire. That is, to be honest, about to change if I don't see some changes in their product lineup here soon. That's not a diss or anything. The Surefire, it's just we need reliable products, and there's plenty of others out there that are on the market. And if Surefire is going to slip, then obviously, as much as you love a brand, you need to go to the brand that can supply you with a good quality product. And for the profit that's in these, they really shouldn't be skimping. At $108, this thing should be a lot better built than what it is. Within that, I would actually have designed the thermal characteristics a lot better than they did. If Surefire would actually, I don't want a job with them, I already have one, but if they would actually listen to me for a little bit, I could actually tell them what they need to do and actually give them quite a few ideas on inexpensive ways to make their product actually better. I understand every company out there wants repeat sales. However, in certain products, you're going to get the repeat sale anyway. We're going to lose a flashlight. We're going to give it away. We're going to, upgrade, every, even if you're not a flashlight collector, you're still going to upgrade every so often, just because newer models came out. I do actually regret, I had two C2s. I sold one of them. I regret selling it. I sold it when I got the Fury, because I could have just bought a pill drop-in or made my own drop-in and not had the same problems as I'm having with this. That's one thing I liked about Surefire, is as much as I trusted my own products, I personally want someone else to blame. That sounds bad, but that sounds really bad. I do carry my own flashlights where it ultimately counts, but in a day-to-day situation, I can't really call up Maglite and be like, oh, replace the housing because I dropped the flashlight, and I got my LED guts in it. That doesn't work. So that's why, I recommend Surefire. I will say a lot of law enforcement and everyone's buying these new flashlights that have these super capacitors that they can charge these things up in like 90 seconds or less. One thing people don't realize, and I deal with super capacitors on several other projects. They're great for what you're supposed to use them for and whatnot, but when there's a problem, they explode really bad and they can do other serious damage. So, i.e., let's say God forbid you get shot, and as much as it nicks the flashlight, it hits the super cap. Well, you just have a little grenade going off on your gut, so you're getting torn apart right from there. They're that dangerous. Or if for some reason you hit it way too hard and it manages it manages to do, you know, damage, and there's no safety in it. There's too many variables in it. When you're talking about tactical or even, you know, home, you know, use, you have to be wise about your purchases. You can't just go out there and buy crap, you know, i.e. like this one was $12.95 on sale, garbage, no offense. This one on sale, $12.95 at Sears, garbage, no offense. You know, in reality, this $138, unbelievable. The only reason why it's got a deformed head is because I smashed this thing, showing the quality of Surefire. So I'm going to be doing my torture test next, and that's going to be on this video. And I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope I didn't take up too much time, and I hope you understand all of it at the end of the day. Thanks. Be safe. Oh, before I go away, I actually want to show you the power of a Fresnel reflector, let's call it. This is a Samsung Galaxy LED on just with the standard assistive light, and we're going to mount a Fresnel to it at an optimal spot. Oh, God, can't do it that way. There we go. Oh, yeah, yeah, it's about there. There we go. Oh, close. I'm back here. But you can actually tell that it's actually concentrating the light down, and it's actually a very bright spot the camera just adjusted for it. And that's actually coming from this, and all it is a simple optic. You can actually take a very low wattage light, as much as this is a bright LED, you can take a low wattage light source and actually make it appear to be a lot brighter by throwing it in one direction. That's how some of the new LED headlights and taillights work, not the ones that are blinding you, but the ones that use very few LEDs but actually throw very far and they don't blind you. They use a combination of Fresnel and reflector. So again, next step is going to be the torture test, which is actually going to be dropping the Surefires off a roof, which is I think 20 some feet, on the concrete, and then we'll also be doing a water test of actually getting water inside the battery compartment of the flashlight, because as anyone knows, if you're hunting or you're tactical or you're consumer or whatever, you could have to change the batteries out in the field, and I have actually had to change them in tactical in water. So water can get in there. When it was halogen, it wasn't such a bad deal. You just took it back apart, dried it off, put it back together, you're good to go. With the LEDs, you can actually destroy your entire thing. So we'll actually show you the LED system that I made that was waterproof, the one that is not waterproof, the two Surefire Furies, and they all will have water inside the water compartment before the test, and as well as a very little bit water in the battery compartment, or maybe even filled up in the battery compartment, because it still should create contact, just to see if the Surefires are in fact waterproof from the battery compartment to the head. If they are, that's a total plus. But I would still like to see a little bit better quality, especially, you know, they're coming out, you know, with 50 million brands, the Surefire LX2, the UM2 Ultra. I mean, I understand, you know, the UM2 Ultra, it's got a setting ring, but this one should at least have the belt clip. And if it had the belt clip, they don't need the LX2, you know, really. And then they give you the option of the tier or reflector or non. To be honest, most of you don't even know which one you should get, and to be honest, at this point, until I see their beam patterns, I'm not sure which ones I would recommend to you guys. So thanks for again watching, and let's move on to smashing some lights up. Thanks. This is one other thing I wanted to show you real quick. This actually is going to show how thermal management plays a role. This is, I forget, I think it was 25, how many watts was it? We'll count real quick. Just to go into thermal management real quick, this is a 70 watt LED array. It's actually a little bit more, but it's outputting less at the moment, being driven by less, but it's being driven by 75 watts. And as you can tell from the size of the reflector, I should actually turn that off so you can actually see it. it's a pretty big reflector, and it's got a fan. And after running this for approximately about an hour, even in room temperature, the heatsink gets pretty hot, and the actual light output diminishes. This has actually been tested on a spectrum analyzer, not just some foot candle meter. So even when you exceed the manufacturer's thermal recommendations, you still can have thermal failure in the reflector. I'm going to show you real quick. As much as this is a 5 watt versus a 3 watt, you can actually see, and let me grab this flashlight. You can actually see that this one, oh, come on, is actually burnt, and it's actually being driven less wattage than what the manufacturer states, and it's got a bigger heatsink than what the manufacturer recommends, and it's still cooking the white LED. So thermal management plays a huge part in LED life and